Have you ever been divorced? This video might be for you then. Let's discuss today the worst heartbreaks for each team of my lifetime in the SEC. This is my personal opinion upon this. This is what I came up with. If you disagree, fine. That is okay with you. This is my opinion. I would love to see y'all's opinions if you're a fan of these certain teams on why it's the case. On why that's the case. Everyone in our life, everyone has had a heartbreak in their life. Either could be either getting broken up with, you miss a test that you needed to have, you didn't get a job. It could be something like that nature. You could have had a porcupine prick you on the way to work, and now you're looking weird walking on a porcupine quills sticking out your butt because you fell on a porcupine. Who knows what's your situation? Maybe that's why you didn't get the job. I don't know. You don't know. That's probably happened to someone out there, but not one of us two. And if it has, please explain. Anyways, heartbreaks happen to everyone, and they happen their own ways. There's sometimes it hurts a lot more than the other. Every heartbreak's on a tier of this one sucked, but I can't get over it, or it was like I might kill myself after this, like type of situation. That happens to everyone in the same way in sports. You put a lot of fandom, a lot of passion, put a lot of emotion into a team that does not love you back, and when that shows, the not love you side shows, it's really heartbreaking and you want to die. But this is why, if anyone in life tells you, why are you a sports fan? Why do you care so much about sports? Your girl asks. You say for these reasons. Because a team emotionally attached so much to you through a heartbreak that you stayed with them unknowingly, throughout more heartbreak, and now you're here. But for the little bit of success that it gives you, some teams a lot more than others, it's worth it. Sometimes it's not, depending on the team. But today we're going to discuss it, and I have an order too of the least painful to most painful loss, heartbreaking wise, of each team that's currently in the SEC. This does not have to be an exact SEC matchup, by the way. It's just the most heartbreaking loss these teams have faced in my lifetime. I was born in 2007. This goes from 2007 on. I might give some honorable mentions, by the way. I probably will. Number 16 is Vandy. This one's kind of a strange one compared to the rest because it really does not have a lot of significance because Vandy's really not been in a lot of significant games. Let's go back to 2013. 2013's loss to Ole Miss. It's a very strange one. James Franklin was still there. They were up by a good amount late. They were up by double digits in the second half. They were up, I think, 3 at one point, and they gave up a humongous run late in the game. Jordan Matthews was on this team. Ole Miss had 489 yards. They were 2 for 2 on the fourth down. Vandy had 2 turnovers. Ole Miss is 0. Jordan Matthews had a big drop late, but Ole Miss is known for their big run this game. It was a 75-yard touchdown right after Vandy scored with 1:30 to go. Vandy at home had a big ride of excitement going for them, and it crashed immediately. Immediately it crashed. And they didn't do bad that year. I think they went 8-4 or something like that. They didn't do bad at all. But that was their big moment of let's start off the year hot against a solid team, and bam, it went right back downhill. Just like Vandy does. Vandy does that a lot. Number 15 on this list, Kentucky. It's not a big surprise they're at the bottom of this list. But did you know that in 2017, I believe, 2018, my fault, they had a chance to make the SEC championship. If they won one game, they would have made the SEC championship. And it was against Georgia, and it was in Kentucky. Both top 10 teams, both heavily important. There was 2 very big games that day, Kentucky versus Georgia, LSU versus Bama. And in both of those games, the road team won in blowout fashion. Georgia ran right through Kentucky. They were at home. Kentucky had the chance. But it showed today what a 5-star and a 4-star meant to these teams. There's a big difference. Holyfield went crazy on Kentucky. And then, and DeAndre Swift did too. They both had over 100 yards. Elijah Holyfield and DeAndre Swift went crazy for Georgia. Their quarterback didn't do that bad for Kentucky. Wilson went 23 for 29. It wasn't bad at all. But when you give up 331 rushing yards at home, you're not going to have a good shot. You're just not going to win. And then they went on to lose next week to Tennessee, which was quite funny because Tennessee was awful that year, and they lost to them by 17. That was quite funny in my opinion. Kentucky ran for 84 yards. Kentucky also fumbled in the red zone. They consistently failed to get touchdowns. That is a continuous theme I will be pointing out today. How teams fail in big moments, in big upset possible potentials, or get upsetted in big moments is usually red zone efficiency. Turnovers and red zone efficiency are huge. What points did you leave on the board that you could have got in these moments? Number 14. This is when it starts to get a little more, maybe more questionable on the list, but I have my explanations on why. You might not agree with the list, but if focus on the team like I picked, like the matchup that I picked for them, not just the order I personally have, but again, the matchup specifically that I picked for them. We have Arkansas, number 14. 2010 against Alabama. The score was 24-20. You might be like, okay, that was a very, very close game. Yeah, Arkansas had the lead in the fourth quarter. They were very good. They were doing very, very well this day. But terrible time interceptions were the main reason why they lost. They had 3 interceptions. 2 of them came in the final minutes. Final 5 minutes. 2 of them came. Ryan Mallett, rest in peace. The guy was doing solid, and then he threw 2 horrible interceptions late. And he threw a red zone interception also. And if we just look at the red zone efficiency, like Bama, field goal, they also had an interception of their own. Touchdown, field goal. You look at, that was my fault. That was Arkansas's. Field goal, interception, touchdown, field goal. That was Arkansas's. That's a total of about 13 points out of possibly 28 you could have got. And then you have Bama. Interception, touchdown, field goal, touchdown. That's 17 points for Bama. That's 13 for Arkansas. That shows the exact difference of point differential for the entire game. You had 13 for Arkansas red zone points and 17 for Bama. You lose by 4. That was a 4-point differential right there. They started off the game hot. They did. McElroy also had a bad game for Bama. So it wasn't like these teams were doing phenomenal. It's just these horrible interceptions. There was a big difference. Jarius Wright had over 100 yards. Ryan Mount threw for 357 yards. Like, he didn't do bad, but then he had some horrible decision making late. And they had a 13-point lead in the second half and blew it. They blew it. And they were ranked in the top 10 too. They were ranked 10th. Bama was ranked number 1. And ever since then, Arkansas has really never fully recovered from that, in my opinion. And you look back at their other losses they've had. Half 2021 against Ole Miss, that was really, really bad. You had like a 52-51 was the score. Yeah, 2011 to LSU, which was a 3 Bam. Arkansas was ranked 3rd and LSU was ranked 1, and then they got blown out that game. And then 2022 to Texas A&M, whenever Cam Little gets the ball over the post and doesn't make it, which was insane. They should have won that game. But this one I feel like makes more of an impact because this team was really, really good. They had a really, really good team that year. And who knows what happens if they win. Maybe they ride it on for a national title run. Who knows? But that was early in the year too. That could have definitely set the tone for them. And they just didn't get it done. Number 13 on this list, Texas A&M. Texas A&M is one of those few teams that have like a lot of heartbreak. But there's not one that was like so significant that's like, damn, that sucked compared to like over the rest, in my opinion. There's a lot of minor ones. Not minor, but like there's a lot of like non-huge circumstance situations, in my opinion. They just had bad losses. Just really, really bad losses. There was none like an SEC championship loss. There was none that was national title hope situation. In my opinion. I don't think. Like, yeah, this one this year to Texas, but I don't think really anyone thought they were going to beat Texas after what happened to Auburn. Like the week before. I don't think anyone thought they were going to recover from that. You have 2013 Bama when they allowed 49 points at home to Bama. You have 2011 against Texas, last time they played the rivalry game before this year. Justin Tucker walked it off with a field goal. And yeah, those are all good ones, but they're not the best ones, in my opinion. I believe the best game, the biggest heartbreak Texas A&M game in my lifetime happened against a team that's not even a Power 5 school. It was 2022 when they played against Appalachian State. They were ranked 6th in the country. They were at home, 17-point favorite. Appalachian State's coming off a game against North Carolina that they allowed 63 points. 63. How do you blow a... How do you lose 63 points in North Carolina? And then follow it up the next week and allow 7 offensive points to Texas A&M. They had a touchdown from Achane. That was on the kick return. But guess what? They gave them the ball 10 times. Only 10. He's by far their best playmaker. They gave him the ball 10 times. And you might be wondering, how did they lose? Let me read you off these stats. They had 9 first downs. They had the ball for 18 minutes. They ran for 180 total. They had 180 total yards. They had 2 turnovers, 97 passing yards. Was 2 for 8 on third down. They gave Achane the ball 10 times, who ended up to be a very, very good player so far for the Dolphins. They had a horrible kick by Caden Davis that would have tied the game, which was off by a good 10 yards. Not to the side, to the front. It landed on the front part of the end zone. That's a 47-yard field goal. He missed that bad, and they gave him a run late. The defense wasn't great, but they allowed 17 points. Score! It's not hard to ask Haynes King. I don't know how they didn't do. And then A&M fell to 24. They tried to work their way back up. Never could fully do so. And they couldn't recover from that. That was, I think, the last straw for a lot of people who came to Jimbo Fisher. I think they might have gone 5-7 that year too. They had a solid start after that, and then they just collapsed completely. I don't know if that was here. No, that was last. Was it? I don't remember. They were really, really bad that year because of this. They were the number 1 recruiting class. They were 17-point favorite at home, and you lose to Appalachian State. When will teams stop putting Appalachian State on their schedule in general? Just stop doing that if you want to be successful. It's never going to work. Michigan learned that lesson the hard way. You should learn that. They never did. Tennessee didn't learn it. They barely beat them. And then A&M. I'm like, come on, buddy. Can't be doing that. Next up, South Carolina. South Carolina is an interesting one on this list because they have a few that are really, really good, heartbreaking losses. This is the only one I'll even just mention. That was before my life. 2006 against Florida, there was a block kick that happened against them where they beat number 6 ranked team in the country on the road. Would have been huge. 2012 against Florida, got killed in a game they were both in the top 10. And then last year to LSU. Still a questionable blocking foul on South Carolina. If Logan Marcellus doesn't get hurt, what happens? If that's not a block on the back, what happens? Or a blindside block, what happens? What happens if the refs kind of like you this game? What happens if you make the 49-yard field goal? Who knows? I don't know. But you probably would have lost in the playoff either way. But this one is more, I believe, underrated compared to the rest. And a lot of times forgot about. Let's take it back to 2013 in Neyland. I know, be like, wow, what happened there? South Carolina ranked 11th, playing against Tennessee Volunteers. They go in and lose to a Butch Jones first-year coach Tennessee team. That's bad. That's a really bad loss. Connor Shaw was 7 for 21. 7 for 21. How are you that bad? He had a QBR of 28. They had 8 punts, 2 turnovers, and Tennessee had none. 218 rushing yards. That's pretty good. But 4 for 14 on third down. Tennessee was in the red zone. Touchdown, field goal. South Carolina got in the red zone one time and got a touchdown out of it, but only once in the red zone. As South Carolina missed the kick, and they were down 10 at half. They put their team behind the 8 ball already. And Marquez North went ridiculous in this game. 3rd and 18 has an insane catch on the left side of the sideline. Was absurd, and they went off a walk-off field goal. You might be wondering why this is more significant to LSU game. South Carolina finished 11-2. They would have been in the SEC championship playing against Auburn, with being 11-1, playing against Auburn, who's 11-1. The winner of that game would have probably played against Florida State for the national championship. That's insane to think about. I know, right? Go back and look at this. Go back and look at the record. They played great from then on. They beat Missouri. They beat Clemson. They played great. But if they would have won that one game, just that one game, give me that one game, they would have probably made the national. They could have had a shot at the national championship. They would have had a shot at the national championship. That simple as that. And the rush defense was pretty good that year too, which was the main problem against Missouri that Auburn had. They just ran through Missouri. where Missouri's supposed to have a really good rush defense that year too, and they still ran through them. But like maybe South Carolina makes somewhat of a difference. They don't let them score 59 points in the game. Like maybe that doesn't happen. I don't know though. I don't know, but that was the closest they've really ever been to having a national title chance. And if they would have won that game, they would have had a very legitimate chance. So kind of sucks here. Next one, Ole Miss, 2000. This was number 11 on my list. Again, these are already pretty heartbreaking from right now. Just trust me. They get worse. They genuinely do just get worse. Ole Miss versus Arkansas. I have a teacher, shout to Coach Ashley. I asked him what's the worst loss of Ole Miss, him being a fan. This was his pick. This was my pick. 2015 lost to Arkansas. I'm just going to read you through this. They gave up 53 points. This team was supposed to be pretty good this year. They gave up 53 points. Brandon Allen went for 442 yards and 6 touchdowns. How do you let Arkansas, who's a mid-level team, go for 442 passing yards? Alex Collins, may he rest in peace, went for 108 yards. They had a combined 1,195 yards between both teams. No turnovers from, I think either team. Chad Kelly was great this game. He was very, very good. They had a block kick to send it to overtime. Ole Miss blocked the kick to send it to overtime. But you look at the time of possession, Arkansas had 41 minutes. Ole Miss had 19. That's insane. I know they have like a little fast-paced offense. That's an insane difference of time of possession. And that's how these upsets happen. And Ole Miss scored. You have the most insane play in the history of Arkansas football. A 4th and 25. Hunter Henry catches the ball, looks around, sees I can't get the first, slings that thing behind him, and just says hope for the best. Just praise. Boop, 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 boop. Ball falls right in Alex Collins' hands. He takes it, has a runway, and somehow gains 30 yards off of a blind lateral. And they go on to score, and they'll go on to get a 2-point conversion. If Ole Miss would have won this game, they would have won the SEC West because they beat Bama earlier that year, and they would have been in the SEC Championship against Florida. Now, that was not a good Florida team. That was an okay Florida team. Not a very good one. They had a lot of close wins that year. Guess what? Ole Miss probably would have been SEC champs. And who knows how Hugh Freeze is remembered? Who really knows? And that's the worst one, in my opinion, for Ole Miss. That was by far horrible. We're now in the top 10. We're in the top 10 of this. And these are getting to the point of like, okay, if they would have won this game, they could have had national title hopes type of level. The other ones are kind of just really heartbreaking. That could have been. These were like, this must have been a solidified opportunity for you to make the national title game or something big that could have led to something like later on down the line that would have been humongous for them in the later years. Number 10, Florida. Florida, this is the one I debated the most on what I was going to put down for. Yeah, some bad losses. 2008 to Ole Miss. That was one I debated. 2016 to Tennessee, blowing a 21-3 lead after having an 11-year success against this team streak, and you blow that. And then 2009 to Alabama, you lose the SEC title game to them. Would have made the national championship if you would have won that. That one I'm not like. I didn't pick that one because you won the year before. Like you just won it before. Like you dominated the SEC. They can have it. Like you lost by 19 too. Like this, Bama controlled it most of the way. They were bound to win. Like someone else was bound to win it. It's just it was their year. They never really fully bounced back. But these two ones here, I'm going to tell you the main one. I'm going to tell you the one I didn't pick, and I'm going to let you figure out to decide which one actually I did. Just think about the worst Florida losses. 2012 Georgia. Now, I might not the first one pops into your mind, but they had 7 turnovers as the second-ranked team in the country to Georgia. If they would have won that game, they would have made the SEC championship, and they would have played against a Bama team that was loaded, but they had a shot to make the national title game. If they would have won that game, they would have played against Bama, and if they would have won that game, they would have played against Notre Dame, and they would have washed Notre Dame. Any SEC team that would have played them that year would have washed them. That was in the SEC title hunt. And they have 7 turnovers in that game. 7 turnovers. And lose. But that's still not the most heartbreaking loss. Who throws a cleat 20 yards down the field in a game that you must win at home. Marco Wilson does. Marco Wilson does, who is a legend in my eyes. We're talking about 2020 loss to LSU. LSU was 3-5. How did they have a shot this game? Let me tell you about it. This game was in the fog most of the second half, so no one could really see. But for the parts that we could see, we saw Kyle Trask throwing interceptions. Let's talk about this. Trask threw a pick six. He had 3 turnovers. LSU had finally a good offensive game for the first time that year. Max Johnson went for 21 for 36, 239 and 3 touchdowns. Cade York went 3 for 3 on field goals with a 57-yard bomb in the fog, which was one of the best kicks I've ever seen. Florida punted the ball 4 times. LSU punted the ball 8 times. Florida had 609 yards. LSU had 418. Florida had 4 penalties. LSU had 6. And they split time of possession pretty much evenly. How did they lose? How? How do you lose a game like that? How do you possibly lose a game like that? You have 3 turnovers, and LSU had none. They also failed in the red zone. They threw a pick in the red zone, which was an insane play. And you also had a turnover at the goal line, turnover on downs. You got stopped. That's how you lose. That's how. It's insane how. But also, Evan McPherson also missed a 51-yard field goal, would have sent the game to overtime. If they would have won that game, they would have had a clear shot at to make the playoff. They just beat Bama, which would have been tough, but they only lost by 6 to them, and they made some mistakes. They would have had a really realistic chance to make it to the playoff. They just had to win that game, which they were heavily favored in, and they choked horribly. And now they never recovered. Florida took until this year to have a winning season. First time in 4 years they've had it. And then Dan Mullen got fired. They never really bounced back ever since then. And now they're losing to Tennessee regularly, which is kind of funny. But just wanted to mention that. And speaking of Tennessee, they're number 9 on this list. And my personal opinion for this as a fan and what actually is the worst loss, the heartbreaking loss ever, is a difference. My most personal heartbreaking loss ever is 2015 to Florida. But the actual most heartbreaking loss in Tennessee history is South Carolina. They got their revenge for 9 years, what I just explained earlier. That's kind of one of the reasons I picked that, which is kind of ironic because, that was the reason I picked that was because it was ironic coming back 9 years later and dropping 63 on a team that's ranked 5th in the country. Do I believe that they maybe got some signals? I don't know. But Rattler was throwing dots that day. You look at those passes, they were not easy. 438 yards and 6 touchdowns. I could hand you my play calling sheet and you still probably could have thrown for that many yards on him. But guess what? He did though. And it was ridiculous. They had 606 total yards, 39 minutes of time of possession, which is really not insane because how fast Tennessee's offense moves. 8 for 11 on 3rd down, 2 for 2 on 4th down. You can't win by doing that. You can't. And honestly, the worst part about all this wasn't just losing to South Carolina. It was seeing Hendon Hooker get hurt, tear his ACL, because whenever he was hurt, you knew any hope was gone. And with him, anything could happen. I don't care if we're down by 18 of 11 minutes to go. He could lead that comeback, and he's just there. He's on the ground, can't move, because his knee's done. He hurt his knee. He tore it. And it was just sad. Once he lost, we lost the entire season. I know we went on to kill Vanderbilt and beat Clemson. That was fun, but this was that game. And they blew it. Completely blew it. And that was the closest we've ever been to a national title game. Because if we would have won that game, we would have beat Vandy, and we would have played Georgia in the first round. We would have got a revenge opportunity on neutral site that we always wanted, in the dome. And in a dome. We would have had our better shot then. I don't know. But, because we would have gotten over Michigan and Ohio State. Whoever would have lost that game, we would have gotten over. So, that sucked. That honestly was horrible to deal with. Watching that as a friend at a friend's house, oh my gosh, that didn't help.